I'm very, very happy to be hosting one of the best chefs, not only in Latin America, but in the world. She's a creative force. She is a successful entrepreneur, author, and she's definitely a passionate feminist. So if you will welcome me in, join me in welcoming Marta Ortiz, Chef Marta
Thank
Ortiz.
you. Thank you.
I
Thank
will.
you.
Marta, thank you very much for being here. I'll start with just doing a little bit of context. I know that Marta is incredibly successful. She has a restaurant in Mexico City that has twice been named in the San Pellegrino list of the world's 50 best Latin American restaurants, which is a great success. It's the #1 Mexican restaurant on the list, which is the French counterpart. And she's an author of 8 books, 2 in the works. She's a known media personality. She's currently the judge in Top Chef
Yes.
Mexico.
The only woman.
The only woman in Top Chef Mexico.
Yes.
And she recently opened her latest international venture here in London, in no other than One Park Lane, which is in the Intercontinental Hotel in Mayfair, which is also a remarkable achievement. MasterChef, I think, is shooting, no? Part of the
Yes, we
season.
finished with that.
You're finished, MasterChef,
Yes, we finished.
for this season. So who is interested in the series, you can check it out. So this is going to be a conversation, Marta.
Of course, thank you.
We'd like to make it as interactive as
Of course.
possible.
Of course.
And well, first of all, congratulations. for
No,
all
thank
the-
you
all the
for inviting
trajectory.
me. I am very happy, I'm very pleased. I think sometimes life can be like a recipe,
Yes.
so it's important to share the secrets so everybody can know how to handle the ingredients. I think that some people can make a master recipe of their lives and make something unique and remarkable. And I think like good cuisine, good persons can be shared. So I'm very happy to be here. And let's talk about ingredients in life.
Yes.
Let's talk about what is beautiful, what it's not, and what do you do with this
Absolutely.
in the everyday.
So I think what we thought about is we wanted to touch on, obviously, Marta's journey, her approach to her craft, talk about resilience and setbacks, and talk about venturing into different projects. And I wanted to start a little bit from the beginning.
Of course.
What you might not know is that Marta has a degree in political science. So she focused her studies in university in political science. So I wonder, Marta, what was the origin and the impetus to focus on that area, and how did you move to
Or
gastronomy?
not move at the
How did you
same
find
time.
your calling?
You know, I born in a very blessed home. My mother is an artist. My father is a medical doctor. And when I was a little girl, I remember that everything happens in a table. They invite the most interesting people to have dinner with us, to share the stories, to share what they were doing. So I remember that I saw sitting kind of this Octavio Paz, and he was a Nobel Prize. So I went down to the library, started reading these beautiful poems and see him eating. So I started believing that in tables, everything could happen. Agreement, disagreement, and that food has its ceremony. So I think that idea, when you're a little girl, it plants like a seed in your brain. Then I grew up, and I remember that I said to my father that he was very strict, as all the surgeons. You know? My father performed the first kidney transplant in Mexico and Latin America. And I'm named Marta because of his first patient. Then he married Marta, my mother. So it was a beautiful story, but he was very strict. You can imagine, a surgeon. So I remember that I said, my father, I want to be a curator. And my father asked me, a curator? You want to work in a museum? And I said, yes, I will adore to work in a museum. I think it's wonderful. And I remember that he told me, okay, you are 14, you can go out, work, put the money together and go to study to be a curator. And then I decide that I have to go to a very good school to have a formal education, because my father always, and I have to say it and honor him, he always believed in intelligence more than having a boys or girls. We were two girls, and I have another sister and a brother, and he never make a difference in that way. So he said me, go to a good school. So I decided, and I read the careers, and they were accounting, my God, math, no, economy, and I say, political science. And I thought it was very interesting. I really like it. I went to ITAM. ITAM is a very good one. We were like at the beginning, maybe 3 girls and like 20 boys. The 3 girls finish and just 3 boys. So we end, at the same time. And at the end of this career, they ask us to make, in Mexico you have to make a thesis. Yes, to have your career done. And they asked us to make a study about social mobility and party votes. It was very interesting. So I went to a community that it's called Milpa Alta, near Mexico. And you have to go to the home and say, hello, good afternoon, come from the ITAM. I want to ask you, how many children do you have? And they said, 10. Okay. How many bedrooms? Just this one. No, I start feeling very bad. Because in Mexico, sometimes I was talking about the contrast, that it's a country with a lot of contrast. But every time that I went to a home, I remember that they offer me mole. When in Palta, it's the place where we have a lot of cactus fruit and mole. And I remember that these people that has no protein, and this is a true story, they serve us in peltre. Peltre is like an enamel, or how do you say it? It's como enamel, no? Like
metal of some
metal,
sort.
but it's painted. And it's painted with blue and white. So in that moment, I realized that they were richer than me eating in the cosmos, because everything was blue and with the stars. So I came with this idea, with my mentor, and I said, I want to change, and I want to build a study about food and identity in this community, because I think it's very important. It's true women who are sharing these kind of recipes through the other young woman. So I think it's quite interesting to talk with these people about this richness of ingredients and the point of view. And I start looking that they didn't have any, how can I say it, this kind of food that comes through big chains. In Milpalta, you never see, or a McDonald's or a Burger King. There's no chains. It's just a community. And why? Because they have a religious party every day. And they make it with food. So for me, it was fantastic seeing that it's it was the Day of the Dead and they share this food. Then was the posadas and they share all the posadas. So food became part of that religious and nice identity. So I finished and I said, this is fantastic. I really like, but I like this part of food, the academic part, when I start building this kind of Mexican sense, the strong, the passion, the woman, the fire, the witchcraft. And I remember that I finished that study, and they really love it in the ITAM, because I finished saying that for me this kind of traditional cooks in Mexico, they are like, ¿cómo puedo decir hechiceras en inglés? Witchcraft woman, that with 4 ingredients they can build everything. So we are friends. I still adore them. I adore all the traditional cooks because they're kind of anonymous heroines. You know, every day most of them, they don't have husbands because they leave to the States to work.
They emigrate.
They emigrate in very difficult conditions. Sometimes they never came back, and they take care about the family, selling food in the markets. And I think that makes another kind of economy, but beautifully. So I remember the tables, these ladies, and I said, I need to build my own place. But I didn't have the money. I didn't have that money in that moment, so I've been very blessed because then there was a group of women who were very kind with me and invited me to make dinners with them because Mexico was on trend because you know, it was starting after Carlos Salinas de Gortari, this big moment with everything, no? Mexico
That was a moment in which the country was privatizing.
Yes, in privatizing, and was very, So we were on the news, we were everywhere. So they invite me to help them with the dinners. And I really adore, and every time that we went to make a dinner, I asked the main chef, can I stay here for maybe 3 months? And they say, yes, if you want to make tortillas or make the coffee, it will be great. So I was helper, I served coffees, and I was very happy. You know, I learned a lot. Then I returned to Mexico. I built this consultant office with the husband of one of my friends. I always been very close to the art scene with the husband of Mariana Cuevas, the daughter of Jose Luis Cuevas, this very famous artist in Mexico that just passed away. And my business partner passed away too, very young. But I adore to start creating restaurants, concepts with him, and making these great events. And food start being my identity too.
So let's talk about that.
And then I saw like Water to Chocolate. This is a true story.
The movie.
I read the book and I saw the movie and I say, I want to be like Tita. I want to be a rebel. I don't want to marry the man that I have to marry in this kind of bourgeois thing. I want to be like her. I want to be a rebel. And I adore that movie.
It's fantastic. Then, if you haven't seen it,
or read the book, I think it's the most celebrated Spanish book, you know.
Yeah, like Water for Chocolate.
Like Water to Chocolate. Now, I'm very good friend of Laura Esquivel because once Denise Dresser make this book that is called Gritos y Susurros, and I was beside her and I say, you don't know, but I am what I am because of you. And she was, why? Because you built a character in a woman that was a rebel through food. So in the movie, what is beautiful is if she was in love, everybody was in love with the food. So I start believing that food can have emotions. And if you're sad, everybody's sad when it takes the food. So feelings can trespass the food. So everything start melting, you know? Yeah. Everything at the same time. And then Emmanuel, my partner, decided to go back to Paris because he was French. And I said, what I'm going to do with this office? I don't like to charge the clients. I don't like that kind of things. I love the creative part. So I remember that I married an artist, my first marriage. I married a very rebel artist that was handsome and nice and the perfect fit, no? But in the moment that I told him, I want to do something, and he was very, very clear with me. Yes, you're going to work for me. That's what you're going to do. And he gave me a book that it was called The Wife of the Artist. And it was horrible because all the wives, they have miserable lives, you know, miserable lives. Just some examples like Gala, maybe, that they have, you know, the little thing. But they were horrible lives. And I say, I don't want this life. So I remember that I went out of that house with just like 10 pesos, no card, not nothing.
Which is at 30 cents
Yes,
today.
I remember that. I remember perfectly. And I went with my mother's house, and I said, I have to be here, sorry, maybe 3-4 months, but I will go away another time. And she told me, yes, of course, you can be here 3-4 months.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. That's a true story.
It seems that you talk of, gastronomy like almost as a language.
Of
And I've seen some of your interviews that you like to tell that you're a narrator in flavors. So
Of course, I think there's a storytelling.
in your style, I'd like to dive a little bit in your style. Artists usually say that part of being a great artist is to find and inhabit your own style. No? Marcus Samuelsson recently said that part of being a great chef is to knowing who you are.
Of course.
So your style is very unique. No? From what you read in the press, it's very bold, it's very feminine, it's very creative. But I think it would be great for everybody to hear it from you. Like,
What is my style?
how would you describe it? How have you developed it? How have you come to find this is Marta?
The first thing is that I never ever want to copy no one. The other thing that I adore is showing that I'm a woman. I think there's in the world right now, the big chefs, they have this minimalistic style, very masculine. And I say, I don't feel okay to copy this and transport to a dish. I adore this kind of Baroque Mexican beauty. So, and even I was talking this morning with a very nice girl that I said, I remember when I see all the surrealistic painters and artists that live in Mexico, like Woman in Wonderland, Frida, Remedios Varo, Leonora Carrington, this great photographer, Katy Horna, the one with the big hairs, And I said, this is fantastic. I want to be like them. They were my role models. I never said I want to be like Joël Rabuchon. I want to be like this artist because they find the way. Imagine Frida, because everybody now sees Frida. She suffers a lot, everybody. But finding her style, being married with one of the most important artists in the world. He painted this big muralist, and she decided to make these small paintings. And and that paintings were her mirror. She invented herself, like that's what the exhibition said. And when you go to Casa Azul of Frida, you really start feeling that she invented the way that she wanted to be, but not because of Diego, because her own dialogue with her.
Okay.
She used to adore animals, so she put the animals here. She adored to have, her big eyebrows, and she never pulled it out. She put her the beautiful red nails and with the rings. And his grandniece, that is a friend of mine, Guillermo Calo, the photographer, he always told me that when Frida went out of the street, people laugh about her. Imagine in a bourgeois society in Mexico in that moment, looking this woman going with the ribbons on the hair, strong, and she couldn't walk very well because she had polio when she was...
And an accident.
And an accident, but polio. And she went, And I said, these women are fantastic. I want to be a woman in Wonderland, in my own Wonderland. So it was more personal. And I develop, and I never want to see they say, this is in fashion, this is in trend, this is made by this male chef. And I say, no, I'm a woman, I love lyrics, I love colors, I'm a proud Mexican, and I'm trying to build a business with a lot of women involved. I give the same opportunities and sometimes a little bit more to women, to tell you the truth. Yeah. If I have a man producer or a woman producer, I say, let's see, bring her first, because for them it's very difficult. Imagine a lady who sells tomatoes in Mexico it's very difficult to get to a restaurant, to be a producer. So I have to be caring about these type of things. I think so.
And for everybody to know, I think there's a fantastic interview from Marta with the Evening Standard in which you're credited with saying, you want to break the
caramel ceiling, of course.
Ceiling. You want to help other women to break the caramel ceiling.
Of course, I say the caramel because it's not the glass ceiling for me, it's the caramel ceiling.
And I think it's very topical now. And I would like to hear your thoughts on what does that mean for you in your industry?
These kind of things, first I hate when they said, and I'm very, in the opinion of Dominique Ren, this great chef. It's horrible that they say, this prize goes for the woman chef. I think that's horrible. It's not the best woman chef, it's the best chef. You don't have to say it that way. You don't have to say it. Let's make them happy. Let's say the best woman chef. I don't think that's fair. It's the best chef of the world. Not, and I think start dividing, that's not nice. What I'm trying to do is really to build opportunities, because maybe in Mexico, here is different maybe, but in Mexico, when you have trainees, I try to educate and be mentor of women and say, I have these 10 men, I have these 6 women, let's bring the woman first, because they want to have an opportunity. They won't have it maybe in other places, or they will be very small windows or doors to open. So I'm trying. My pastry chef is a woman.
Which is fantastic.
I have one sous chef man, one woman, and my head chef is a woman. And I'm trying, even with the flowers, I buy it from a woman. So I'm trying to make this network that everything is very feminine, and because we don't have opportunities in the country to Mexico.
Do you find that more chefs are following your example? Do you see somebody?
Yes, I think there's a wonderful woman chef that I adore. She's young, she's from Tabasco, now she has a restaurant in Mexico, and she always calls me, I'm making this name because of you. Can you help me? And I say, yes, of course, because I put names to the dishes different. I won't say creme caramel with the perfume of da-da-da-da, no? No, I call it Mary Goes to the Flower Shop, because Mary is a character, and she changes every month. Even Mary has been candidate and has lose. Sometimes she's sad and she doesn't want to be in the menu. No, she wants to be.
She has her temper.
Yeah, she has temper. She's a modern woman. She goes, to the library. She wants to make a PhD. She's a modern woman, Yeah, she's getting divorced, so please, Mary has to take care of her. She's with the Culinary, and everybody laughed. Now I'm making that book. I have I think 40 emails from my editor, because he's mad because I have to do it more quickly. But it's a fantastic book because the name is Maria, because I love the name in Spanish. Maria va, Maria is moving.
Yes.
Recipes for women with greatness.
Oh, I love that.
So what I'm doing is putting this, it's not just a gastronomy book. The first part is talking about what ingredients you need in life. And the second part of the book are my favorite women in Mexico that they tell the recipe of their own life. So it's fantastic to see a woman like Carmen Aristegui with a big knife and say, I have to cut everybody, no? And she gives a recipe of little cookies. So it's this kind of high contrast. So
it sounds like a fantastic project.
It's gonna be the project.
You're more than welcome to come back again.
Course.
We will be privileged.
And we need to
that.
bring these 12 women that they are fantastic. You know
Absolutely.
them, and some they are, very famous, and the other are not famous, but for me are heroines that they are in the resistance. They make things for the Mexicans. Maybe they are not well known, but they are fantastic.
Yeah. And you touched on something very interesting now, which is the struggle, no? There's a lot of determination, there's a lot of resilience that needs to come when you are basically trying to change the status quo. There's one anecdote that I would like to share with
Of
the
course.
audience that illustrates very well your nature and your spirit of resilience and struggle. So in 2003, Marta opened her first restaurant. Immediately was a success. Very well known, very popular.
I worked so much, you cannot imagine. I was the valet parking, the security, the cook. I went to a bank, I remember. My ex-husband told me, you will never get the money. So I went to a bank. I remember that I bought something that I couldn't bought, and I returned it the other day after the bank appointment. I remember that I went very elegant. And I asked the man, I need $1 million. And he told me, for what? I say, for a restaurant. And they
Wow.
gave it to me.
Fantastic.
I said, here's my business plan. And I show it, you know. And they give me the $1 million. This is a true story.
That is a fantastic story.
Oh, yes.
Marta. I think
And I returned with a lot of pity because I couldn't afford it. I need $1 million to build a restaurant. And it was a great success.
it was a fantastic success. Like it took off. However, 5 years later, the government
I changed the location.
asked you.
Yes,
to-
remember that I have this beautiful, but I need to make it. A lot of people was saying me, Marta, we need to build this restaurant in Spain and in New York and everything. So, and the space was very beautiful, but I say, I need a private room, I need office in the house, I need to build it. So I saw the most beautiful corner in Mexico where Louis Vuitton was. And I say, okay, Louis Vuitton, let's go. You will be Louis Vuitton, I will be Águila y Sol, a Mexican brand and a woman brand. So I changed location.
You changed location and
And a
then
beautiful place. Legorreta made the space that was
fantastic architects.
beautiful, fantastic, and we have a serpent, you know, on the ceilings. Because I don't build restaurants with architects. I always ask artists, you know, people who light opera or woman designers or for everything. I love that people from different, not just the common people, no, the people that it's a little bit crazy. Yes, a little talent.
spiky
yes.
ones.
Yes, the spiky ones. I adore that.
So the government asked Marta to shut down the restaurant.
They closed me my restaurant.
So they asked her with the excuse that you were short one parking
Less than one
space.
parking space.
Less than one parking space.
I remember that afternoon, and every time I remember, I cry because it was so horrible. Because people was having lunch, they came in, and they say, we're going to close this restaurant. And I say, why?
Yeah.
Because you need less than one parking space. So I remember that afternoon,
I'm sure that must have been devastating.
devastating. They took the people away. They took my people away. And at the end, I didn't want to go. They said me, we would leave you here. And I say, it's perfect. I will die in here. I have food, I have water, I can be here
I know
6
how
months,
to.
and I will make my resistance, I will call the newspapers. And they took me outside by the force.
And what do you think the motivation
I think I was punished
because of how
of my
successful
success,
you
of
were.
course. And I was a woman,
Yeah.
and I was very young, and I think I cannot tell you it was this person or this person. It was the system, because at the same time, a lot of women struggle. Carmen Aristegui lost her job. A lot of women, and say, it was for me devastating.
There was a period of a clamp down on certain
I lost
vocal
everything in
personalities.
3 days. My work, my house, everything.
But fast forward 1 year, and in 1 year,
I remember that I was crying, and a friend of mine, this is another true story, how women can help other women. She's a very influential and intelligent lady, Denise Dresser,
yeah, of course, a journalist.
a journalist in Mexico and in the New York Times, and a very good friend. I remember that I was crying. and she came to my house. She's very small, not very thin. What are you crying about? And I say, I lose everything. Everything. I lose my restaurant, I lose my money, I lose everything that I have worked for. And she looked me in the eyes and she told me, you haven't lost anything. You have it here, so let's go. She opened me the door and she took me away. So I remember I was crying in the street. I have to find a horrible work to survive, that's the truth. I review menus, no, costing, the things that I don't like, but I have to do it. And I learned. How can you be punished?
And that's what I would like for you to share in retrospective. Because 1 year after Marta opened her current restaurant, which is the one that catapulted you to international acclaim. But I think that a lot of us will or have faced setbacks.
Of course.
Now in retrospective, what do you think made you find your strength and just bounce back with all that force?
I thought that I have a social responsibility and to be an example for other women. I don't do it just for myself. I remember to see my cooks, chef, what we're gonna do? We don't have work. And I say, we will find a work, don't worry. And I remember that's why the name is Dulce Patria. People doesn't know, that's my private joke. Because I think that my homeland is sweeter than my government.
Yes, Dulce Patria means sweet
it's
homeland.
It's my private joke. And the logo, it's a woman with a flame, like an Amazon, in a horse. So if they do it again, I will do it again. I told them, if you're going to close me the restaurant again, I will open again and we will die. Maybe first you or me, but we will keep like this, no? You close, I will open. You close me, I will open. So I felt in that moment that I have to get a strength, not just for me, because I have to be an example for a lot of women. I was in the supermarket and they come crying with me. I cannot believe this, chef. We are very sorry. What are you going to do? And I said, we have to do it together. We're going to build it again. So I make Dulce Patria. I don't know which would, now I see it back. It did happen to me. I don't know, but I say, I have to do it, I have to do it, I have to do it. I divorced the twice. Imagine my husband was working with the current president, and I said, I cannot sit with these people. I must go.
Of course.
I cannot be in the same table. I have another idea of life. I have values. So go for your work. I will stay here.
And congratulations, you have actually stayed.
It was hard.
And stayed for the long
It was
term.
hard. I remember the bills. I think, what I'm going to do, oh my God. But you find the strength. You find the strength.
And now, Marta, with your most recent venture
Yes.
here, the name is Ella Canta, which means she sings. I'll
course.
let you tell the story of the
We all
of
sing
the,
together.
of the name. But I think it's very, very interesting that you're coming to one of the most competed markets, the UK gastronomy. We find that in our jobs at Google, we need to venture elsewhere. And we often struggle, no, on how to adapt to that new market. And you have that added complexity that you have said that you want to bring and stay as authentic as possible.
Of course.
How do you balance that objective of being remaining as authentic as possible with probably the needs or the pressure to adapt to the local taste or the local market?
I think London is very international and people is used to have this big palette. And talking about big palette, you have great Indian restaurants, great Asian restaurants. So I think people is open to flavors. That's the first thing. Second, I think that Mexican cuisine is very powerful. And I think it's very sensual. So I'm sure that it will seduce everybody. Because when you try a mole, you're trying 50 ingredients. And I'm sure, and that's part of Maria of the book, the nuns made that recipe. And I think they made that recipe because they weren't allowed to get married. So all the sensualness, all this young, they come through food.
Found an avenue.
Yes. So you try that, and you feel in ecstasy when it's well done, really. You try, and it's these 50 ingredients melting in your mouth, the chocolate, the spices, the cinnamon, everything is so powerful. and I'm sure that that's why Mexican food is on trend, because it's the old and the new world together.
Such a great fusion,
yes,
no?
we're not inventing fusion between China and France, you know.
Yeah.
Mexican food in the conception, it's fusion food. We have this very interesting pre-Hispanic heritage that it's true. Moctezuma Emperor has these 300 dishes every day, and he can choose from, because he was thin. Remember, people said maybe it was like this. No, he need to choose. They were warriors. They need to make a strong. And then the Spanish came with all the Arabic influence. So I think it melted perfectly. And then in all the convents, all in the Baroque time, they rebuild and they make this Mexican identity, like the mole, like the pipián.
It's like thrice it has been like really
like all these
around.
sauces. And I have an idea of at the beginning, and I always said that when Hernán Cortés came to Mexico, or La Nueva España in that moment that they call it, and he saw La Malinche. Malinche was this beautiful and wonderful lady that everybody looks as a trader because she was very intelligent, but she wasn't a trader. She was the mother of Mexico in a way. When he tries her, he adored her because it tastes like the sun, salty. Have you tried? Have you put your hand in the sun and then try it? It's a little bit salty. So I think he get in love because she was salty, because she tastes like the sun. And I have that idea that these melting, wonderful parts all over the world that they were in Mexico. That's why Mexican gastronomy is so rich. That's why our culture is so rich. That's why we have the artists that we have, the movie directors right now. They are amazing. Why? Because we have this imagination and this idea of beauty. Before I come to London, I saw Roma, the new film of Cuarón. Wow, an amazing story. What a profound story about this Mexico.
Proud
of what they are doing,
the work they're doing.
Yes, but they have this imagination, and that imagination is through food too.
I wouldn't like to hijack your time, so I want to give the opportunity anybody to,
of course,
ask any questions
of course,
or
and thank you
share
for being
anything
here.
That you would like to ask Marta. If not, I'll carry on.
Of course.
Hi, I went to Ella Canta a few months ago, and I had the Maria from Mexico dessert. It was literally one of the best desserts I've ever had.
Thank you.
But you were saying how it changes and sometimes it's not on the menu. Is it always the same actual dessert, or does the dessert itself change?
In Mexico, we change it every month.
Okay.
And here, we change it every time that we have a special menu. Now, Maria is this new one. Maria went to Mictlán. Mictlán is the land of the dead for the Aztecs here, but in Mexico, she goes all the way. She went there. She returned with victory. She's alive. And now she makes a government of all the stars. So she creates an eclipse in Mexico. So everybody say, she's powerful. And I say, of course, yes. She can government even the stars.
That's incredible. So
Yes.
when do you have the new dessert?
This one in Maria
It's
Bamiclan
currently.
is currently. In
Okay.
Mexico, she has her star.
Okay.
I have more hands to do it.
Okay,
And
so
more
if I
woman
go
that-
back, I can't have the same dessert. Or
You want the same one?
the same dessert.
You want Mary Comes to London?
It was the.
Just ask us in the reservation. You have the right people. Stephen will make it happen. He will tell the kitchen, or Gabriela will say to Elias. No problem. No problem. Thank you very much. And I'm very pleased that you like Maria. Maria's a character. It's not a dessert. It's like, she's a writer. She's everything.
Why did you decide to open a restaurant in London?
London?
Yeah, and maybe you said it. Sorry.
I think it's, no, I didn't say it. I adore London since I was a little girl. I remember that I came here with my parents, and I really adore it because it was the first time that I tried Indian food and these kind of new flavors. So, as I said, all the seeds stay here. Then the group that I'm working with, they went to Mexico, see different chefs, and they decided that I could be successful in London maybe because I have, I think, this imagination ingredient that I adore. So it was built in the both ways.
And I think I will exhort everybody to go because
To Ella Canta is nice.
because it is quite unique. I think
Yes.
it is beyond what you would usually think of
course.
Mexican cuisine.
Yes, of course.
It is remarkably different and incredibly authentic.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
I definitely encourage
Thank
you
you.
to try it.
You mentioned that you're working now on a new book with a different concept, really empowering a certain number of women and their story. What about your previous books? Were they also...
There are more cookbooks. I'm making these because I think I have to share my experience of Águila y Sol, that was terrible in a way, but in a positive part. And I think because I make so much this effort, and I was telling you that I believe that life can be like a recipe, building these ingredients, that I have to share it, and I would love not to be just the only one that share it. So I'm asking people that I highly respect in Mexico that have been through difficult times, maybe worse than mine, but they're my kind of heroines, you know. I believe in the power of woman. I say, I like Wonder Woman, you know, this kind of Wonder Woman that we have in Mexico. Sometimes I say, this woman has lost a child. They are here to ask for justice, and that's the work of every day. That's hard. That's hard.
Yeah.
How long does it actually take to train all the chefs in the restaurant before they actually bring on the plate what you expect? And are you actually cooking yourself sometimes?
Yes,
still?
of course. In
Here,
Mexico,
but here
I
in
adore.
London, in the like.
Yes, sometimes yes.
So
of
when
course.
are you there again? When can we go?
Okay. I'm coming back in February. I'm opening a new restaurant in Mexico. Very interesting, because it's a cafe, and I think we are losing all the bread Mexican tradition that I adore. Even the names we call it: cocoles, puerquitos, conchas, novias. You know, all these beautiful names. So I'm opening a cafe with all the traditional bread, with pulque, with chochitos, with all these kind of beauties. I'm going to open it in January. I think after Águila y Sol, I was a little bit frightened, you know, I think it was unconscious. So I stay in my small castle, you know, you put like a barrier. But I decided last year that I want to achieve better things that I have. And I'm going to open 3 restaurants next year, and one it's going to be amazing because it's a theater, it's not a restaurant. Oh, wow. We will have plays, and the plays will go through food, and the menu is going to be built with someone like Laura Esquivel, like butter to chocolate. So we're going to build this menu it's gonna be like a testing menu, but even the things that you're gonna eat with is not gonna be conventional. It's gonna be very interesting.
You're a foreigner and you're a woman in a city that is a very tough city. What has been your biggest challenge? Because even here, the chefs that we hear from, there's hardly any women in your world. So
Okay.
has that been challenging here?
Yes, of course. I think the most difficult thing here for me is that I'm not all the time. That's the first thing, that if I want to achieve something, I maybe will need to have more time, educating people about Mexico, because I think one of the challenges that people get confused with Tex-Mex food and Mexican, and more right now, And what I believe, for me, that it's a challenge sometimes, it's even, hello Marta, no? It's hello chef. It's different, no? So I think it's a way of I was saying, in Mexico, they call me chef because they see me every day and they know that I have control of everything, of the fire of man, of everything. But here, I do the menu, I work with great people, but I don't have the time, and that's difficult for me sometimes. So I have to create, what I want to do the next time is make the chefs come to Mexico and maybe have more environment of what we are doing. I'm making this dish of this blue because I adore this painting of Remedios Varo in this museum. So we're going to take this Woman in Wonderland in this plate and do it right. That's what we're going to do. Coming and going, not just coming. I think they have to have, the blood, the spirit of Mexico.
Do you think that is particularly like the educating part?
Mm-hmm.
How do you approach it beyond your restaurant? Obviously, the restaurant is there and there's the food. How else do you do it?
In Mexico, I do it completely different. Sometimes Mexico, the chefs, they maybe didn't have a formal education. So on Sundays, we give them Mexican history lessons.
Oh, right.
So they feel proud about what we are. I invite very interesting people, sometimes artists, so they will know that we have this figurative tradition in Mexico. And now we're going to have, I think that is going to be amazing, because I love flowers, but I don't like flowers just because they are nice. I adore them because they have, I think, in a spirit, and in Mexico, in the chamans, and in traditional medicine, they use it to cure you. So we're going to invite an expert in flowers and the chaman culture to show us what to make powders and colors with the flowers. So it's going to be amazing.
So that's an ingredient you use, no? Currently, like flowers is left and right,
and
which is
I adore
a
it.
core part of
But I want to use it more, but more as, not just as adoring tea.
Mm-hmm.
I want the power of this ingredient because of the color, because of the well-being, and because the tradition, even in Mexican traditional medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So we touched on this a little bit before, where we were talking about how your style is very different from what most chefs are doing nowadays.
Yes.
Most chefs, as you said, are very minimalist, and you really celebrate femininity in your food. It's like very bold, very in your face.
Exuberant.
I
Yes.
remember when I went to your restaurant in Mexico City, you served these incredible pineapple chips that were in the shapes of butterflies and had edible glitter on top of them.
Of course, I adore it.
I just, as soon as you served that, I thought, this is so badass, this is so bold of this woman in such a male-dominated field to be saying, eat butterflies. Like, this is who I am.
Yes.
And I wonder, in your career, how much pushback did you get? Because very often, if you're doing something different, people tell you, don't do that, that's wrong.
A lot.
And how did you
And I pay the price, but I don't care.
How did you come to decide that, and how did you come to never doubt yourself? Because there's this tricky trade-off, I think, sometimes between being self-confident and like not listening to feedback. So how did you make sure that you were finding the right path?
I always listen to feedback about the flavors. Because you need to know, and people maybe say, I don't like this because it has these tastes, this. But about the style, I never asked to other cook. I go with the artist. I remember that I built this beautiful relation with Ricardo Legorreta, and I remember that I go running to his house and show, do you like it? And he told me, he was the best architect in Mexico, and say, no. Then I get back to the kitchen and build the salad in another way. Do you like it? No. So because I love to hear from other artists. Sometimes I invite Guillermo Calo, that is this great Mexican photographer, and say, do you think this has this power and this beauty of Mexico? Yes, Marta, but think in this way. So I always love to hear that from another artist more than another cooks, because I think it's, as you said, it's a temptation to be like another person and more in this global world. And I think you need to listen. And I go and I never go to another restaurant to have inspiration. I love to go to museums. I can be, today I saw that it was Klimt in the National, in the Royal Academy. Yep. And I love the gold and the purple of Klimt together. I want to see that because and then I can go to Alexander McQueen and say, this is black. And she's a woman designer, and say, oh, Simon Rocha, that is putting, flowers all over in her Instagram. I love that kind of inspiration. And when I make the black menu that I'm taking to San Francisco, I read Cesar Vallejo, this poet that I adore, that said, so much love, but nothing against death. And I start on that point. So I get inspired by that kind of things. I can go to a museum and start crying because I think it's too beautiful, And people look at me like this. But I cry because I think it's overwhelmed, I think where is the beauty? I think that when a person can create beauty, or more than that, I think that our lives have value when you can share beauty. And beauty can be defined a lot of things, but beauty can be in love, in power, in paintings. But I think that's our mission in life, to share beauty.
Wow. I'm inspired now.
That's what I think in my small world. And at the same time, we didn't talk about that, but I love to make very healthy business, because then I can decide. So now that I'm making this cafe, I want that this cafe be very strong financially talking, so I can make decisions, and I want to bring every month a maestro panadero. We call it like that in Mexico. I don't know how to call it here, because they're not chefs. They're
master bread maker.
Master bread maker. And I want that they can stay in Mexico City for a month and rent a very nice home for them and share what they have to share with us and give them all the respect. So I need to find a lot of money and make it very healthy to do that. So that's my point of view, to make very strong business. And if people doesn't like the menu because of the glitter, I don't care if I think it's good, if I think that the people who I really respect is good. I love to hear, as you said, you have to hear what people say about the flavors, but I don't want to be like any male chef. I adore being a woman. I adore being a Mexican, and a very proud Mexican. And I remember that when my grandfather gave me these beautiful filigrana earrings with 2 doves, and he told me, and I believe him, you are a princess from Monte Alban. I believe it. And I remember that all my friends want to be, you know, Marie Antoinette in the parties. No, I get dressed like Mexican. I say, I'm a Mexican princess. I adore it, you know, because I think Mexico is a very strong country. With a lot of controversial right now, we need to work a lot. But I think we have a big potential. I was very proud to see that we are the 9 or the 11 economy of the world. So let's make it, Mexicans. Let's do it. Let's work every day and feel proud of what we are doing.
I think you were talking about being a princess or wants to be a princess. I think that you are a queen now.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Please join me in thanking Marta.